mid-September, and the leaves have started their traditional fall transformation. It's easily the most wonderful time of year in Quebec to take a cruise along the St. Lawrence River. With villages perched atop the cliffs, the homes along this majestic shoreline bask in the festive colors of the season, which rival those of even the greatest artists. On the Atlantic side, New England also takes part in the festivities. Uncle Sam's riverside states are lucky enough to be bathed in fall colors. The defining moment of these celebrations is, without a doubt, the famed Indian summer, a gentle lull before winter sets in for good. This week, Dream Cruises invites you aboard the Boreal as we discover Indian summer in the heart of the St. Lawrence. This 10-day themed cruise kicks off in Quebec's metropolis before wrapping up in New England in the United States. From Montreal, the ship navigates the heart of the St. Lawrence River, then heading south via the Atlantic Ocean, before completing its route in the charming city of Boston. The Boreal is owned by the company Ponant. This superb 132-cabin yacht is true to the French company's philosophy, offering luxury cruises where intimacy and well-being come together as one. With its reduced size, this vessel can offer both a unique itinerary and excursions inaccessible to larger cruise ships. This dream cruise begins in one of the most beautiful cities in the province. With a population of just over 1.5 million people, Montreal is one of Canada's most multicultural cities. But our visit to Montreal will be a quick one. We're at the Jacques Cartier Quay, located in Old Montreal, one of the jewels of Canada. All around, historic buildings make up this postcard-worthy part of town. Departure time approaches. Once the ship is docked, we can finally hop aboard to discover this marvelous vessel. With its 7 decks and 142 meters in length, 1.5 football fields, the diminutive cruise ship has everything we need and more to enjoy our cruise along the heart of the St. Lawrence. Once on board, procedures and protocol are established. Upon registration, a photo of every passenger is taken. This is our official passport that allows us to enter our cabin, as well as serving as a security measure for embarking and disembarking for excursions. Our suite is located on the 6th deck. Here, it's all about comfort. We have a superior quality king-sized bed, a living room, a boudoir, and even a little balcony that allows us to take in the magnificent views unfolding right before our very eyes. The suite also has a superb bathroom with a double bath, along with a full line of beauty products. For the connected traveler, interactive workstations let you stay in touch with cyberspace. If you'd like technical information about the cruise, excursions, or simply would like to watch a film or listen to music, the cabin's television set offers a number of interactive functions. On top of all of the luxury and technology, the ship offers incomparable room service. Upon arrival, a bottle of champagne and delicious canapés are served. Every day, the staff does its best to make our stay even more enjoyable, thanks to the little touches that make a big difference. What service! The bed is made, the lights are dimmed. A truly warm and inviting atmosphere eases us into our magnificent voyage. Once the anchor is raised, we're treated to our very first magical view, Montreal's glowing skyline. The cruise is officially underway. With a glass of champagne in hand, we admire the beautiful architecture of the metropolis, which accompanies us ever so briefly along the majestic river. We're heading straight for the cradle of French America, Quebec City. We traveled the river eastbound all through the night. This morning, waking up to the two bridges that straddle the St. Lawrence leave no doubt about it. We've arrived in the old capital, Quebec City. The captain's final maneuvers leave us just enough time to have a little breakfast. The ship has two restaurants. This morning, for our first meal of the day, we make our way to La Licorne on the second deck. This is the primary restaurant. Able to accommodate more than 250 people, this gastronomic restaurant will be an anchoring point along the entire trip. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner are served here. This morning, we enjoy a classic brunch with fresh fruit, pastries, and more. With a good cup of coffee in hand, a loaded plate, and Quebec City nearby, we know we're ready for a fantastic day. Founded in 1608, just over 400 years ago, the focal point of this city is undoubtedly Chateau Frontenac. The most photographed hotel in the world welcomes us this morning. From its promontory, the chateau seems to be saying hello, and we feel privileged to be here. This autumn-themed cruise has a few surprises. Today, we're off on an expedition. Many choices are offered, including a trip into the city featuring its historic center. But seeing as how we'd like to take advantage of the fall colors, we hop on a bus for a little autumn fun. First stop, the Cabana Souk, or Sugar Shack. Even if it isn't the official sugaring off season, a visit to the cabane is always great, especially in the fall when the colorful trees add to the magic of the sweet treats on offer. On site, we bear witness to the history behind the sweet nectar collected from maple trees. All of the storytellers and historians agree on one precise detail. It was the native Indians who discovered the secret to maple syrup. But how exactly? The stories get a little tangled. A tomahawk caught in a tree, an arrow that pierced the bark of a maple tree, dogs who licked broken branches to taste the nectar. The stories and legends are just as sweet as the recipes that highlight the maple syrup itself. With a satisfied sweet tooth and a light heart, we get back on the road to go visit one of the most beautiful places in the Quebec City region, Parc de la Chute Montmorency. Situated just before the bridge that has straddled the St. Lawrence for more than 3/4 of a century on the way to l'Île d'Orléans, the Montmorency Falls are deeply rooted in the history of Quebec City. As a matter of fact, it was Samuel de Champlain who baptized these falls. We get into the park via the summit, at the same spot where you'll find the manoir that bears the same name as the falls. From this spot, a trail leads us across a footbridge above the Montmorency River. It's here that the river changes its name and vocation, leaping out of its bed to become the highest waterfall in the province. At the foot of the falls, a large basin, a panoramic staircase, and an aerial tramway make this park a must-see attraction for any visitor wanting to take advantage of one of the best views of the river and island. Our little escapade around Quebec City is already over. Time now to get back aboard the Boreal for a special evening. It's at the foot of the Chateau Frontenac that the captain and his crew have decided to invite us for a traditional welcome cocktail. The Théâtre French line on the fourth deck is where we've been invited to meet the captain and his first mates. With champagne in hand and a festive atmosphere, the evening's presentation officially kicks off the cruise, which promises to be a wonderful discovery of Indian summer.
Voilà. Cheers, à votre santé. Cachet de bière, merci à tous.
We leave the old capital and venture further and further to the province's east. The next 2 days will be dedicated to a monument that separates the Charlevoix region on the Côte Nord and links the Lac-Saint-Jean region to the St. Lawrence River, the Saguenay Fjord. At the mouth of the river, the Saguenay empties out into the St. Lawrence. On the left shore, Baie St. Catherine, a small Charlevoix village with only about 250 residents. It's from this spot that we can take one of 3 ferries to Tadoussac, the first ever village on the Côte Nord. A must-visit destination for marine life observation, the charming village of Tadoussac is one of the tourism gems of the province. One of the first tourists to set foot here was none other than Jacques Cartier in 1535. He was captivated by the beauty of the region. Tadoussac, with more than 400 years of history, is part of a very select global tourism club, boasting one of the most beautiful bays in the world, as well as being one of the nicest villages in Quebec. As the ship pulls into the village, we can immediately see one of the icons in the world of tourism, an immense red-roofed hotel, Hotel Tadoussac. This hotel largely contributed to the village's popularity thanks to its international cinematic appeal. It was the star of the film inspired by John Wing's novel Hotel New Hampshire, with Rob Lowe and Jodie Foster. Heading further into the fjord, dozens of seals stop by to say hello. Here, the landscape is populated by a myriad of marine life, such as the seals, as well as belugas and other whales. The depth of this imposing body of water is perfect for these visiting mammals. On the surface, we find the fresh water from Lac Saint-Jean, while deep below, the salty water allows belugas, among others, to come here to reproduce. We've started making our way back up the imposing Saguenay waterway. We can finally take in the fjord's true splendor. By definition, a fjord is a long, narrow, deep inlet of the sea between high cliffs, typically formed by the flooding of a glaciated valley. At a length of roughly 100 kilometers, the Saguenay Fjord offers spectacular views from the 7th deck. On the shore to the right, which is the coast of the Côte Nord, we can see Baie Sainte-Marguerite. This area has always been a favorite spot for observing belugas. Continuing our route toward the town by the bay, we see the fjord's imposing cliffs, which at this time of year are awash with the most amazing colors. In order to navigate the fjord, just like on the St. Lawrence, the captain of the Boreal must defer to the expertise of a St. Lawrence River expert. Only they are authorized to carry out the maneuvers required on these waterways. This sailor knows the territory like the back of his hand and easily guides the vessel through the obstacles along the way. The men at the helm lead the Boreal through the Saguenay's front doors, right into Baie-des-Ha. Here is where we use tenders. When the ship can't get close enough to the dock, these smaller boats shuttle us to shore. Numerous excursions are available here in Blueberry Country, including an aerial sightseeing tour via helicopter. Despite the less than stellar weather, we take advantage of the helicopter ride to take in views of the territory below. The view from above is incredible. It gives us an even better appreciation for the grandeur of the fjord and the bay. The bay is actually the maritime equivalent to a roughly 20-kilometer-long dead end. The town at the very end, where we're anchored, was actually the first spot to be colonized in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region. Economically, the region has always relied on its forests and the production of aluminum. Now it can count on another source of revenue from a brand new player, the cruise industry. A completely new maritime terminal, able to accommodate even the biggest ships, has been built. Since then, thousands of visitors from the four corners of the globe have come to discover this magnificent region and the people who live here. The pride that residents of the Saguenay have is legendary. In order to properly welcome visitors and demonstrate their history, a show of epic proportions was created. The pen of Ghislain Bouchard crossed the vision of Louis Wautier to give us a grand spectacle where more than 100 volunteer actors present La fabuleuse histoire d'un royaume, the fabulous history of a kingdom, a historical fresco that recounts the main events that have happened in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. An English version of the show is now available, which is proof that the region is becoming more and more popular with visitors from around the world. Regardless of language, one thing is for sure, this remarkable show is a must-see for anyone visiting this part of the country. We've left the Saguenay Fjord and are now en route to the village of Havre-Saint-Pierre. In a few kilometers, the river will lose its name and become the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the gateway to the Atlantic Ocean. Here, the shorelines are further and further apart, and with water as far as the eye can see, it looks more and more like the sea. On this beautiful sunny morning, we decide to take in the view, all while sculpting our thighs. We expect to do a lot of nature walking today, so it's a good idea to warm up a little. On the 5th deck, you'll find an ultra-modern exercise room where it's easy to stay in shape. Even if exercise machines have become more sophisticated over the years, the act of exercise has remained the same. A bike is still a bike. However, it's kind of nice that technology now allows us to relax our brains while our muscles do all the hard work. After a few hours spent navigating the waters, a village discreetly emerges ahead on the north shore. We've arrived at Havre-Saint-Pierre. This village's history is actually fairly short. It was in the middle of the 19th century that 6 families of fishermen decided to leave the Île de la Madeleine to settle here. In all, those 6 families totaled 30 people. They named the village Pointe aux Esquimaux. It was in 1927 that the name Havre-Saint-Pierre was officially adopted to honor Saint Pierre, the patron saint of fishermen. No doubt about it. Here, fishing is more than just a hobby. Snow crab, mussels, scallops, and lobster contribute considerably to the economy. That being said, the archipelago situated nearby has also contributed to the development of the town and region over the last several years. We'll be spending part of our day at l'Île Mingan.
Excusez-la! C'est une vacances en fond de voir.
After a quick ferry ride of only a few minutes, we arrive at one of the archipelago's islands, l'Île Niapisco. The Mingan archipelago is comprised of about 30 limestone-based islands, including about 1,000 smaller islands dotted with beautifully rare rock formations. They're often referred to as flower pots and are easily the best reason to visit the spectacular nature park. These unique sculptures that seem to stand guard on the shoreline actually played an important role for the first explorers, the fishermen, who navigated the waters of the region.
Le mot mengan et menguen, dans les faits, a la même origine que le mot menhir ou le mot dolmen. Menguen veut dire pierre blanche. Donc nos monolithes, illuminés dans bien des endroits dégagés de la forêt ou de falaises et autres, étaient facilement perceptibles pour les pêcheurs, pour les marins, normands, bretons surtout. Et donc ils ont balisé les îles de ce nom.
The monoliths are made of crumbling granite, formed by the perpetual ebb and flow of the ocean waves. Over the years, each of the rocky sculptures has been continually transformed based on Mother Nature's mood. Each flower pot has its own unique shape. Here's where visitors let their imagination take over. Everyone agrees that this flower pot is in the shape of a woman that has been sculpted over the years. That's where its official name came from, the Good Lady of Niapisco. After hiking the trails of Île Niapisco, we get back aboard the shuttle to head over to another island, l'Île Quarry. L'Île Quarry gives an entirely new perspective of the archipelago. Here, the wooden trails that cut through the forest have been entirely converted. We can see the dead cliffs, moorland, peat bogs, and of course, the superb monoliths that line the Lanse des Érosions. A day spent on the Île Mengan goes hand in hand with our vivid imagination and sense of wonderment. Each rock formation we encounter seems to tell us its own personal history. With these gorgeous images fresh in our minds, we reboard our vessel, which has been patiently waiting at Havre-Saint-Pierre. Tonight, we've been invited to a performance by the ship's dance crew. The show, presented at the Théâtre French Line on the 4th deck, takes us on a journey through the jazz years. Tomorrow, we'll cross the Gulf to the Gaspé Peninsula, but right now, it's showtime. A new day has dawned on the St. Lawrence. The ship has left the North Shore on its way across the Gulf to the opposite shore. We're headed for the village of Percé, which is situated on the eastern tip of the Gaspé Peninsula. In this corner of the world, tourism is the economy's driving force. More than 500,000 people visit here for two main reasons: the famous Rocher Percé and l'Île Bonaventure. We won't be the exception. As we approach the coast, we can see the rock formation with its distinctive hole. This rock, which is actually an island, dates back 375 million years. It measures roughly 450 by 90 meters. That's a little more than 4 football fields long by 1 field wide. History tells us that the famous rock once had 4 arches. Today, only 1 remains. The constant freezing and thawing over the years has eroded the rock and its arches. It was in 1845 that the second-to-last arch crumbled. It's estimated that the final arch, the one we see here, will disappear in about 400 years. The famous rock gave the name to the village situated just ahead. The history of the region dates back well before Jacques Cartier's arrival in 1534. The Basque and the Micmac Indians used to fish here. The town's history is passed down from father to son, from generation to generation. This is by far the best way to learn of the tales and legends that make this part of the country so unique. The town's old general store is a veritable gold mine for turn-of-the-century items. On these shelves, oil lamps and preserves sit beside medication and hats. You could find anything, even horse medicine. During that era, fashion was completely different.
Costume de bain en laine. Mais est-ce que vous savez, là, madame, que ce costume de bain-là, il est unisexe? Imaginez votre homme là-dedans. Là, c'est le temps d'apprendre la photo.
After visiting the general store, we leave for a final visit to Percé. We get back on the water with a brief opportunity to cross l'île Bonaventure, where we find the world's largest gannet colony. The 4-square-kilometer island has 4 trails totaling some 15 kilometers. With time slipping away, we take the path that allows us to see hundreds of thousands of gannets in no time at all. Even if the colony is the biggest in the world, biologists have noticed a considerable population drop over the last few years. Scientists are monitoring the phenomenon very closely, without necessarily being alarmist about it. A lack of food, climate conditions, and even a lack of space are among the hypotheses being considered. One thing is for sure, the colony is not in danger, and we'll be able to observe them for a very long time. Unfortunately for us, our time is limited, and the ship has to once again hit the open water en route to yet another port of call. We're back on board. The captain was expected to set a course for the Île de la Madeleine, but due to poor weather conditions, he has to change destinations. That's another one of the great things about this type of ship. At any moment, the captain can modify his itinerary and quickly find another, more convenient port. These small cruise ships maneuver easily and can navigate some of the largest bodies of water.
Très chers passagers, ici votre commandant. Donc maintenant nous sommes rentrés dans le bras d'or.
After a few phone calls and some quick calculations about the trajectory, the captain and his assistants finally decide on a new destination. We're headed directly for Nova Scotia. The weather is pretty gloomy, so we take the opportunity to do a little shopping. We head to the ship's computer center to recapture some memories of our cruise. All through the trip, a photographer accompanies the group, taking beautiful photos of everything we've experienced. As expected, the talented photographer managed to capture incredible images. Now it's just up to us to make our selections. Once our choices are made, the discs are burned and delivered directly to our cabin. Even if we've taken our own photos of the trip, the professional ones are wonderful souvenirs to take back home. We've sailed all night toward our next port of call, Louisbourg. Louisbourg is an old Nova Scotia city built on l'Île Royale. Today, it's known under the name Cape Breton Island. Founded at the turn of the 18th century, the city was chosen by the French government as the spot to build a giant fortress that was intended to protect the entranceway to Canada. That's what has drawn us here today, the Fortress of Louisbourg. Even if Mother Nature isn't sending much sunshine, at least the rain is staying away. After dropping anchor at the mouth of the port, a tender takes us ashore, right in front of the imposing fortress. As soon as we arrive at the quay, we're greeted by a woman in a period costume. Our visit today will be more than a simple walk. We'll be taking a trip back in time at this impressive Canadian fort. It was in 1719 that France decided to build a grand fortress. The site was immense, and everything was so out of the ordinary that King Louis XV asked engineers if the streets were actually paved in gold. As the work advanced, slowly but surely, Louisbourg became a flourishing colony thanks to the fishing industry. But Louisbourg's history isn't as glorious as its architecture. The city was officially finished in 1745, nearly 30 years after the start of construction, the eve of its first epic battle. Gibraltar of the North, as it was referred to at the time, wasn't able to resist the soldiers of Great Britain. After 46 days under siege, the fortress fell into English hands. A few years later, after the signing of the Aix-la-Chapelle Treaty, Louisbourg once again became a French fortress. In 1758, the fortress was back under siege by the English, determined more than ever to permanently wipe it off the map. 13,100 soldiers, 14,000 sailors, 150 ships, and in less than 2 months, Louisbourg had once again been conquered. To make sure that they would never have to come back, the English demolished the fortified city brick by brick. The city that we visit today is actually a historically reconstituted version of Louisbourg. The entranceway, the buildings, the steel mill, and Main Street are all considered a living history museum. In the interior courtyard, we have the privilege of watching a historical reenactment offered up by actors in period costumes, which takes us on the most enjoyable journey back in time.
Je retire la baguette, puis pour toute la charge. Avec ma baguette, avec 2 doigts seulement. 1, 2, 3. Oh, voilà.
At every place we visit at this imposing fortress, we can't help but marvel at the colossal level of construction and reconstruction. Too bad it fell at the hands of invaders. The fortress still gets plenty of attention from overseas, but thankfully, the modern-day visitors are not coming here with hopes of a conquest. Instead, they are for a brief moment taking a journey back in time at one of the country's most wonderful living history museums. With our visit winding down and the ship calling us back aboard, the timid sun has finally decided to poke through the clouds. That's all it takes to get things going on the 6th deck. In no time at all, the barbecue is going, the shrimp is prepared, and the tables are set. We are invited to an Oriental-inspired barbecue at the grill restaurant La Boussole. The chef is already behind the grill, and the plates are starting to move. Finally, a chance to enjoy the view from the 6th deck, all while savoring some Oriental cuisine in the open air. A glass of white wine makes the perfect accompaniment to the impromptu meal. While we enjoy the scenery, the captain and his crew have already decided upon our next destination. We're en route to a town that also happens to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. experiencing the final moments of this dream cruise linking Montreal and Boston. Today, the sun is out in full force and even decided to put on an early morning show. We're only a few kilometers from our next destination, Lunenburg in Nova Scotia. The city is located about 100 kilometers from the province's capital, Halifax. From the tourism industry's point of view, Lunenburg has two major assets that make it a must-see destination. The port city is on UNESCO's prestigious list of World Heritage Sites, as well as being the port of registry for one of the jewels of the Canadian Navy, the Blue Nose. The ship is anchored in the bay just ahead of the city. We'll use a tender to once again shuttle us to the dock. During our approach, we can see that boating here is, without a doubt, more than just a simple pastime. Fishing boats, transporters, trawlers, sailing schools. Each quay has a boat. Each boat has a crew. Each crew has a vocation. It's all about the sea. Today, we don't have any planned excursions. Instead, we head off on foot to visit one of the most beautiful spots in the entire province. Lunenburg's history is an interesting one. Before the city was founded, the territory was occupied by the Micmac Indians as well as the Acadians. It was in 1753 that the city's history officially started. After responding to an invitation from the British government, 2,000 colonists crossed the ocean and founded the city of Lunenburg. The majority of the volunteers came from Switzerland, Germany, and France. In one fell swoop, the city was founded. A stable economy was established based on agriculture, cod fishing, and shipbuilding, just like their predecessors, the Acadians and the Micmacs. A city that is built so quickly by a government must be well structured and organized. The original urbanization plan can be observed, which is still in place today while wandering the streets of Old Lunenburg. The original city plan was based on the checkerboard pattern. All the streets are perpendicular or parallel, and the location of buildings follows the same pattern. A city whose economy depends on the sea must face it. The city has maintained its 18th century look. 6 divisions with 8 city blocks. Each city block was subdivided into 14 lots that were given to the first settlers. Lunenburg has preserved its extremely uniform architectural heritage since its foundation. Almost every building is built with wood, and each is maintained according to strict guidelines, which ensure that the city looks like a postcard all year long. During our walk, you'll see the Fisheries Museum of the Atlantic, a maritime museum that honors builders and the infamous Blue Nose. A recent study of the tourist industry examined the top 1,000 places that must be seen before dying, and the museum made this prestigious list. It has 3 floors of remains, mock-ups, and reproductions of ships. You can see the sewing machines that stitched the sails of many important sailboats, and learn more about the U.S. Prohibition days. And, of course, the Blue Nose. This magnificent schooner defined the country's reputation around the world. The history of this Canadian sailboat dates back to the start of the 20th century. It was originally constructed for cod fishing, but the Blue Nose raced in between fishing seasons. After losing to the champion of the times, the captain of the Blue Nose took his revenge the following year. Victorious, the Blue Nose held the championship title for the 17 years to follow. Not a single Canadian or American ship could beat her. The schooner's reputation became such that after no time, it became a national symbol emblazoned on stamps and is still today on the 10-cent coin. The boat unfortunately sank near Haiti after being sold as a merchandise transporter in the Caribbean. Our visit to Lunenburg is coming to an end. We need to climb back aboard the ship shortly as we head to the United States and head to Boston. We will celebrate the end of the cruise with a magnificent gala supper at the gastronomic restaurant La Licorne on the second deck. This evening, nothing will be left to chance. While we reboard the ship and get dressed to the nines, the restaurant staff has been working full speed to set the tables for tonight's dinner. The ship's sommelier has combed the wine cellar in order to offer guests some lovely bottles for tonight's meal. White and rosé for the aperitif, and Grand Cru for the main course. Excellent bottles of Pomerol await, as well as Gevrey-Chambertin, which are French wines with an exceptional reputation. These prestigious bottles deserve to be accompanied by a meal of equal proportions, and tonight we will be spoiled. The chef has gone all out in an effort to offer us the best of the best. Upon arrival at the captain's table, the reaction says it all. Everything is top-notch. The gastronomic meal is a huge success, and the cruise is everything we could have asked for. This cruise at the heart of the St. Lawrence allowed us to observe the majestic river and the villages and cities that live in harmony with it in an entirely new light. The Boreal certainly delivered. This little cruise ship operates in a class all by itself. On all 7 decks, nothing is small. On the contrary, everything is grandiose. While enjoying our dessert, we think back to our days spent at sea, simply unforgettable. In just a few hours, we'll drop anchor in Boston, but this time it'll be our final stop. We'll have to take our suitcases with us as we visit one of New England's most beautiful cities. Who knows, maybe we'll find another magnificent ship to take us out on yet another dream cruise.